I'm like, hey, I've already started a podcast. I can make another podcast. At that time, I was really getting back into running again, and I was listening to all the running podcasts, and they were really enjoyable. It's all the ones that you have now. I think there's all the same ones that are at the top of the list, except this for the road running podcast, except for Mario started his podcast like 3 months later. I said, you know what, all these podcasts that I like, they interview pro runners. I like them a lot. We don't need another podcast interviewing pro runners. No one talks to amateur runners, at least on the road running side. There were a couple on the trail running side. So I said, hey, I'll start that one. Ultimately, I didn't care if anyone listened. This was just for me.
Sure.
Have a nice 45-minute conversation with somebody. I would get a lot out of it. If no one listened to it, I really didn't care, which was great because no one did listen to it. So for 6 months, no one listened to this show. It was so funny. I was this close to shelving it. Like, I'm putting up my hands like a millimeter away from shelving it. And I was at Thanksgiving dinner down in Dallas with my wife's brother, his family, and he's not a runner, but he looks at me and he's like, hey, I actually like your podcast, man. I think you do a pretty good job. And I didn't even know he listened. I didn't know anyone listened to the podcast. My wife still never even listened to an episode. I'm 5 years in. So, Jimmy, are you serious? You like this show? Yeah, I think it's good. And like I had on that trip said I was not going to be doing it anymore. So I'm like, all right, I'll stick with it. And I decided to stick with it. And so you working in the communications field in the so basically that first 6 months, I had 8,000 downloads in total. 8,000 in total.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not a lot for people who are counting at home. But for me, it didn't matter because it was getting basically the same amount of downloads as the Providence College podcast.
Sure.
So I'm like, hey, that's the only thing I can compare it to. All of the podcast stats are opaque. No one knows what anyone's getting. So I was like, yeah, it's not doing too bad. So I'll stick with it. So the second year, so basically at the turn of the new year, I'm like, what I'm going to start doing, I'm going to take the podcast and I'm just going to basically use it as a way for me to work on my social media marketing for my day job. But instead of doing it during, like, working on my social media marketing at my day job, where if I mess up, I might get canned, I'll just do it with the podcast. No one's paying attention to that anyway. It'll be a good lab for me to try that out. That's exactly what I did. So first 6 months, I had 8,000 downloads. In the following 12 months, I had almost 1 million.
Wow.
And that was how it all took off from there. So the marketing side really did it. And then also we did some other things. I started going to 2 episodes a week at a certain point. And then I professionalized the graphics and I got some really good guests and podcasts started becoming more popular. And I got in at the right time. Glad I did. And it really took off from there. And just hit the 5-year anniversary on July 14th, just a short month and a half ago. And here we are, 5 years in, and now it's my full-time job.